Hey guys, what's up? My name's Kayla from Planning with Kay, and welcome back to another video. You guys know what time it is. July is almost over, August is almost here, which means I am back to set up my August monthly bullet journal spreads. I'm gonna be setting up all of these spreads today with my steampunk themed sticker collection. I designed this all the way back in January, and I've just been waiting for the perfect time to use it because I loved how this theme turned out so much. So I'm very, very excited to finally be busting out for my August bullet journal spreads. This is also a very exciting setup because this is actually going to be my first month in a brand new notebook. It's always the best feeling in the world to finish one notebook and start another, and I especially love doing that in the middle of the year. I know some people are a little bit hesitant to start a new journal before the full year is up, but I personally really like that little mid-year pick-me-up that comes with starting a fresh, brand new notebook. So I'm very excited to show you guys this setup, and without any further ado, let's get right into it. So like I said, I'm starting a brand new bullet journal for August, and I decided to try out one of the dotted notebooks from AmandaRachLee this time around. If you've been following along with me for a bit, you may know that I've been using the brand Archer and Olive pretty much religiously for the last couple years, and I have absolutely been loving their notebooks. But I knew that these notebooks from Shop AmandaRachLee were supposed to be very similar quality. They both have 160 GSM pages, which is very important for me as somebody who uses a lot of watercolor in their journal. And they both come with some very cute cover designs and colors, which I love as well. So I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to try one out for the very first time. Don't worry though, by no means does this mean that I'm going to stop using Archer and Olive. In fact, I'm still using one of their notebooks right now as my long-term journal that has all of my yearly spreads, collections, and whatnot. But I thought it would be fun to try out another brand and support Amanda's business since she is a creator that I greatly love and admire. So to start off this brand new notebook, I'm going to first create a cover spread for the month of August, which is just a really fun, creative way for me to get started with my monthly setup, and it serves as a nice introduction to the new month. I always love to use my cover spreads as an extra excuse to create a more full-fledged watercolor art piece in my journal. My bullet journal is definitely as much a creative outlet for me as it is a productivity tool. So these cover spreads are where I really let that creative side take over. So for this monthly setup, like I said, I'm doing a steampunk theme. Now, just in case you've never heard of steampunk, or maybe you're not sure exactly what it means, I'll give a little explanation. So steampunk started off in the media as a literary subgenre of science fiction that blends the Victorian aesthetics and the steam-powered technology of the 19th century into a more advanced and futuristic world. So the idea is that there is an alternate history or a fictional world that is very futuristic and advanced, just like our current society, but where all of the technology is still steam-powered, and the aesthetics of this world are very old school and retro. Today, this genre has expanded to refer to essentially a whole aesthetic and creative movement, which includes art, literature, film, fashion, and so forth, all defined by this mix of retro and modern. I'm going to show some pictures here that illustrate this steampunk look a little bit, because it's definitely something that's easier to look at and identify than it is to explain. Some common steampunk elements include gears, steam-powered machinery, clockwork, robots, submarines, airships. There's always lots of Victorian fashion, like top hats and bustles and monocles. There's a lot of pirate and cowboy imagery that makes its way into steampunk as well. And everything is usually made out of metal, leather, and wood with a heavy color emphasis on brown, bronze, and copper. So now that we hopefully have a basic understanding of this steampunk aesthetic, you can see how I'll be using all of that as inspiration for this monthly theme. I also have to take a quick second to thank my patrons who voted for this theme over on patreon.com/planningwithkay, and even more specifically to my patrons Bethany and Avery, who very passionately and persistently campaigned for this theme over the course of many months. Since this is quite a niche concept, it took a little while for everybody to catch on to the idea. I know that I definitely would have never thought to do a steampunk theme without those patrons who suggested it. And I'm just so beyond happy that it ended up becoming a reality because this has to be one of my favorite themes and setups I've created to date. And it's so unique and different from what I would normally do. So again, a special thank you to my patrons for always fueling my creativity and coming up with such wonderful, wonderful ideas. I really appreciate you guys. So for this cover spread here, I'm using my watercolors to create some gears and pipes coming from the corners of the spread, and I then painted in some red octopus tentacles reaching in around the pipes. Interestingly, the octopus is almost like the mascot of steampunk, and I always thought that was a little bit random, so I did some research into why that is, and turns out it originates from the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, which is the 19th century story of Captain Nemo and his very advanced high-tech submarine called the Nautilus. This book was actually written before steampunk was even a thing, but interestingly enough, it's considered today to be one of the earliest examples of the steampunk genre, and it has heavily influenced what steampunk has become today, which is why the infamous octopus creature from the book has carried its way throughout the steampunk aesthetic. As usual, by the way, all of the supplies I'm using are going to be linked down in the description below, including this watercolor palette that I'm using, and the specific colors that I used for this setup are yellow ochre number 44, burnt sienna number 46, maroon number 72, gray number 21, and finally a turquoise green deep number 57. After laying in all the watercolor, I wanted to add some black shading to everything just to make it all pop a little bit more and look more three-dimensional. So I'm using my black Tombow Fudenosuke hard-tip brush pen to add some dark shadows to all of my gears, pipes, and those octopus tentacles. And I also use my white gel pen to add the little suckers onto those octopus arms as well. And at this point, I was so beyond happy with how all of these little illustrations turned out. When I had started this spread, I was initially only planning on doing the gears. That was like the image I had in my brain. But as I was setting this up during a Patreon live stream, we were all getting so inspired together and were coming up with more and more ideas, which led to the pipes being added, and then the octopus arms made an appearance, and it really just got away from me in the best way possible. And I think this is probably my most creative cover spread I've ever made, and I really am just thrilled with how this turned out. So now that all of the illustrative components of this cover spread are finished, all that's left to do is to write in my August 2021 title, along with a quote to tie it all together. When I designed the stickers for this theme, I made one of the main background colors a turquoisey green color to contrast all of those yellow and brown metal shades. So I decided to bring in that turquoise green deep watercolor for all of the lettering throughout this setup. And I just love the pop of color that it ends up bringing to this, and it just perfectly matches the stickers that I'm going to be using later on. So I'm using that color to letter in August, nice and big across the middle of the spread, and then I just have to decide on a quote to fill the rest of the empty space here. Naturally, I wanted a quote that was somehow steampunk inspired, and I ended up going with a Rousseau quote that was suggested by my patron Antoinette, and that quote says, "The world of reality has limits, but the world of imagination is boundless," which just perfectly finished off this cover spread. I also decided to use some stamps as a recurring theme throughout this setup. I bought this set of alphabet stamps to match my typewriter theme that I did back in January, and I absolutely love them, but I find myself constantly forgetting to actually use them since they're a newer supply for me and they're not really a part of my routine yet. But I was really committed to using these for this setup because I thought that the old-timey look of the stamp lettering was just a perfect match for this steampunk theme. And I'm so happy I remembered to use them because I really think that these tied this whole theme and setup together. So I just used those for a couple words in my quote at the bottom, as well as for the 2021 in the title. And I definitely want to remember to use these stamps more often. So I'm making a note to self right now. Use your stamps, Kayla. You love the stamps. You just gotta remember to use them. I will also be sure to have these stamps and the ink pad that I use linked down below. I think these stamps are just the perfect size for using in my bullet journal since the letters are all approximately as big as like one box on my dot grid. So I highly recommend these if you like this stampy look. With all of that done, I'm gonna finish the spread off with a quick black drop shadow on my August header, and that's it for my August 2021 cover spread. The spread got me so excited about this whole theme, and it made me really eager to continue with my functional monthly spreads. So without further ado, let's move on to the rest of my August setup. As usual, I'm starting the functional part of my monthly setup off with a big ol' calendar spread. I'm still loving all things Dutch door, so I chopped off 9 spaces on the right side of this spread. This is just going to give me a little flap with some sidebars that are going to be visible no matter which way I flip it. And you'll see what I'll be doing inside that Dutch door in just a bit. I'm using this big vertical sticker from the Steampunk Monthly Kit on the left side of the calendar, and I'm then going to draw out my actual calendar here, which is basically going to take up the rest of this spread. Each day is going to get a box that is 5 spaces wide by 6 spaces tall, and I'm separating that top row of each week as a spot to write in my dates. Now it's time to bust out my watercolors once again. I'm first going to letter in a header at the top of the calendar with that same turquoise color, doing my lettering in that exact same style I did on my cover spread to letter in August calendar all the way along the top. I'm also going to use my watercolors to color in those little date boxes in my calendar, alternating the yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and maroon colors, making sure to line them up diagonally across the calendar. And I can't help but once again admire how well these watercolors match the colors that I used in the sticker collection, which you can see by comparing them to that big sticker on the left. This is why I love this watercolor set I use, even though it's just 48 colors. I find that I basically never have to mix my own colors to get a perfect match to whatever sticker theme I'm using that month. And that really makes using watercolor in my journal so easy and fun and satisfying every single time. I also want to quickly mention that all of the stickers that I'm going to be using throughout this setup are available in my shop at PlanningWithKay.com, both in physical and digital download form. I'm going to have every sticker sheet that I used linked in the description, and I'll also be sure to feature the entire Steampunk collection right at the top of my website for easy finding. The 3-sheet monthly kit is only $5, and all of the individual sheets are $3.50, and every order from my shop always comes with a full-sized freebie sheet as well. The only sheet that you're not going to be able to find in my shop is the Patreon exclusive sheet, but if you're interested in that, you can check out my Patreon, which is also going to be linked down below. So instead of writing in my dates, I decided to bring in some extra pops of color by using the number circle stickers from the Steampunk Monthly Kit, just sticking those into my date boxes on my calendar. I'm now sprinkling in some extra decoration using some more stickers from the monthly kit, like a little clock in the top left and a cute little octopus in the bottom right. I always design my stickers during Patreon live streams, and back when I originally designed these, my patrons actually ended up wanting to name the 2 octopus pals that I drew. So we decided that they are 2 long-lost brothers named Ollie and Bruce. Ollie here is more of a gentleman. He wears a top hat and a monocle and probably has a very posh British accent. And the other octopus named Bruce, who you're going to see a little bit later on, is more of a working class octopus. He's a little bit rougher, not quite as fancy, and he's always wearing his welding goggles, of course. I always love when we come up with little backstories for the stickers that I design and imagine a whole world for them. So I just love this idea of the 2 long-lost octopus brothers. And I feel like at this point I could write a whole short story about Ollie and Bruce. I just love them so much. With the calendar done, I'm continuing to the rest of this monthly overview spread. Firstly, I ended up turning that right sidebar into a spot for monthly tasks and goals, and then I'm going to move on to the inside of my Dutch door. I'm going to have 2 separate sections here, and I'm using these 2 banners from the matching functional add-on sheet to label those. One is going to be my monthly bill schedule, for which I'm using this number strip sticker that's also from that same functional add-on sheet. and that's just going to be a space for me to jot down all of my bills that are due throughout the month. And then I'll highlight each bill once it's been paid. This bill schedule is an absolute lifesaver for me each month. Without it, I definitely wouldn't be able to keep track of all my bills, and it's been a tried and true component of my monthly setup for quite a while now. The right side of this inner Dutch door section is going to be a brain dump type space for the month, which I'll be titling Inner Workings of My Brain, which was very creatively suggested by my patron Cherie. My brain dump is basically just a little notes section where I can jot down any random ideas, thoughts, or notes throughout the month that don't really have a space anywhere else. And this month, it's going to have 3 categories. Each one is going to get a box that is 12 spaces wide by 9 spaces tall. And those 3 categories are going to be content, ideas, and other. I decided to use some gears here from the single decorative sheet of gears and sprockets. I just cut out a little right angle into each gear so that way it looks like it's kind of peeking out from the corner of these boxes. And I'm also bringing in a Crayola Supertip marker in a reddish brown for my category headers. After a couple finishing details, that is it for my main monthly calendar spread and my bill schedule and brain dump. And time to move on to the next spread in my August bullet journal setup. So these next 2 spreads are going to be all about memory keeping for the month of August, and I'm going to be joining them together with some little baby Dutch door sidebars just by cutting off 5 spaces from the right page here. These sidebars are going to be purely decorative, and they're just going to make it feel like these 2 spreads belong together since they're both going to share these same sidebars. So this first spread I'm setting up is going to be a daily review spread, which includes 1 line a day to give me space to jot down a brief summary of each day, as well as a super simple daily mood tracker. Setting this up is going to be really simple. After creating my header at the top of the page, I'm going to use another number strip sticker from the functional add-on sheet, along with the circle list stickers from the freebie sheet, and I'm just laying those both in along the left side of the page. This is going to give me the space I need each day to write in my daily summary, as well as a little blank circle next to each day to fill in for my mood. I found that I've been craving more room on my 1 line a day the last few months, so I decided to make this go all the way across the spread this month, which will give me a nice long line to go into a little bit more detail with my daily summaries. I'm creating a little color code at the top of the page as well for my mood tracker, using that same reddish-brown Crayola Supertip marker along with my stamps, and I'm just going to use 4 different colors to track my moods, ranging from best mood to worst mood. I really like mood tracking as a way to check in with myself about how I'm feeling throughout the month, and it also helps me to notice if my moods are getting consistently worse for any reason at any point, and that's usually a sign that I need to make some adjustments to my schedule to try and elevate my mood again. Now I'm going to fill in those decorative sidebars. I decided to fill these 2 vertical spaces up with gears, some bigger ones from the single decorative sticker sheet, as well as some smaller ones from the 3-sheet monthly kit. And I cut most of the gears in half to look like they're actually coming in from the sides of those sidebars. Whenever I cut a gear in half, I placed 1 half on one sidebar and placed the other half on the opposite sidebar, and I really love how this ended up looking. I also used that turquoise watercolor to add a couple little lines to fill up some of the extra space and add a bit more of that green color to this spread. And with those sidebars completed, that is it for the spread, and time to turn to the second spread of this little memory keeping section. Now, this spread is something I'm really excited about because it's a little bit new for me. If you watch my July plan with me, you might remember me talking about how I've been playing around a little bit with some photo memory spreads, specifically for a road trip I went on in June. And I loved this so much that I wanted to try doing a monthly photo collage, just as an extra way to keep track of special memories in my journal. And I'm very excited to be implementing that today. So this spread here is going to include my gratitude log and this photo memories page that I'll be filling up with photos that I've taken throughout the month of August. And I have a feeling I'm really going to love this, especially paired alongside my gratitude log. This whole spread is just going to be a really fun and positive overview of the month that I'm excited to have to look back on in the future. So I'm creating my gratitude log just like I have been for quite a while now, by painting in some random watercolor boxes to fill up throughout the month with positive memories and things that I'm grateful for. The style of gratitude log has really been working for me, and I always get really excited when I get to fill in a new box and watch this page fill up with little nuggets of gratitude throughout the month. I also made sure to include a few more spaces than I did last month because I found that I didn't have quite enough room to capture all of the things I was grateful for. But it's still a limited amount of spaces, so that way I don't feel like I have to come up with something every single day, since I do like for what's written on this page to be very genuine, not just things that I'm trying to come up with and pull out of thin air just for the sake of filling up the space. It was at this point that I realized that I really didn't like that header that I created for this spread, and since I was going to be using this spread for the entire month, I decided it would be worth it to just redo it. I also always like getting the chance to show y'all how I fix mistakes in my journal or redo things that I'm not entirely happy with. So for this redo here, I just pulled that header sticker off of the page and I laid down a fresh new one. And I then used some scrap paper that I had sitting around from those Dutch doors that I cut out to cover up the rest of the header on the left. And I just used a little adhesive tape roller from Tombow to stick that in. And I also used some of my whiteout roller to cover up any little bits of header that were still showing. Since I've been so happy with how the stamps were looking throughout this setup, I thought it would be perfect to just use those stamps to create a new header instead. And I am so happy with how it turned out. I feel like this complements this spread a lot better and the rest of the setup. And I'm glad I took that little bit of extra time to rework this header into something I'm much happier with. So with that redone header, I just finished the spread off with a couple extra details, including some drop shadows on all of my watercolor boxes. And that is it for my August memory pages. So the next page in my August setup is going to be my live stream schedule. I live stream 7 times a month over on my Patreon. It's like the best parts of my week. And I like to have a separate schedule for all of those just to make sure that I'm not missing any. So I'm using this printable calendar that I created to easily and quickly set this up. I release themed printable calendars like this every single month over on my Patreon under the $1 tier. And if you sign up, you can gain access to the entire library of printables from the last 3+ years when I started my Patreon. So if you like the idea of using printables in your journal every now and then, I definitely recommend checking out that $1 Patreon tier. Even if you just try it out for a month, there's a ton of content over there that you can just download right away, save on your computer, and use whenever you want. So of course, I'll have the link to my Patreon linked down below in case you're interested. Next to my live stream schedule, I'm going to create my monthly playlist, which is one of my favorite pages every single month, and it's the place where I document all of the fun media that I'm consuming. I've really been loving giving you guys some recaps of my favorites from my playlist pages the last couple of months. I feel like it's a really fun way to mix up my voiceover a little bit and also give you a little bit of more personal insight into the types of things I'm into. So I'm going to do the same thing now for my July playlist, just focusing on a few books and movies. July was a really fun month for me in terms of books because I finally finished the audiobook for It by Stephen King, which I've been working on since May. It's by far the longest book I've undertaken, and I absolutely loved it. After finishing it, I think I can officially say that I'm a Stephen King fan now. It was my second of his novels after I read The Gunslinger earlier this year, and now I'm currently listening to the second book in that Dark Tower series, which is called The Drawing of Three, which I'm also loving. I just find his worlds so fascinating and easy to sink into and become entrenched in. I really love how he paints his characters with all of their flaws and doubts. And I'm just very excited to keep reading his works. I also started and finished the Midnight Library audiobook in July, which is such a beautiful book. I know so many people have been raving about it all year, and for me, it definitely lived up to the hype. I highly recommend it, especially if you've ever struggled with your mental health. Both of these books are pretty heavy, so just a warning that if you do want to check either of these books out, I recommend Google searching their content warnings just so you're prepared for the subject matter and so you can judge for yourself whether you want to dive into those. Finally, as far as movies go, I watched a bunch of movies this month, including quite a few new ones, which is pretty exciting. One of my favorite new movies was Luca, which is the newest Pixar movie about these two young Italian mermen who venture out to a nearby human town. And it was just wonderful. It made me laugh. It made me cry. It ticked all of the boxes for a great animated Pixar movie. I also watched A Quiet Place 2, which was a really amazing, tense, scary movie. It picks up right where the first film ends, so I definitely recommend watching both right after another, even if you've already seen the first. Jake and I made a little movie night out of it, and we watched both of those movies back to back, and it was such a fun movie watching experience, and yet again shows me what a wonderful writer and director John Krasinski is, aka Jim Halpert, and it also makes me really excited for any future movies that he ends up working on. Moving right along, I'm now setting up the final spread in this video, which is going to be my weekly spread for the first full week of August. I'm starting this off by creating 7 boxes for the 7 days of the week, and each box is going to be 6 spaces tall. I always like having weekly spreads for each week of the month as an overview or a summary of the week, and a place to just pre-plan what I need to get done throughout the week in a bit more detail. Sometimes it also gives me enough room for my full daily to-do lists, but if I find that I need more room, it's no big deal. I just end up creating daily logs for those days where I need a bigger space to jot down all of the various to-do list items that day. I'm using this header sticker at the top of the spread that features Bruce, the other octopus brother that I talked about earlier with his welding goggles, and I'm using my stamps again to create a simple header for the week for August 2nd through 8th. If you're ever interested in seeing more of the weekly and daily spreads that I create throughout the month in my journal, I definitely recommend checking out my Instagram and perhaps following me. I post nearly every single spread that I create in my journal over there, including spreads that are actually already filled out, which I think is really quite useful to see. And a lot of those spreads never see the light of day here on YouTube, since my YouTube tends to be a lot more focused on my monthly plan with me's. I'm also super active on my Instagram story, where you can get a little bit more of a behind-the-scenes look at everything that goes into running my business, designing stickers, manufacturing stickers, and shipping out orders, creating all of the content that I create. There's some cute videos of my cat Luna that pop up over there, and I also do Q&As over there from time to time. And I always answer all of my DMs and any questions that show up in the comments. So if you ever want the chance to engage with me a little bit more or just see more of what's going on in my journals, I'll have my Instagram linked down below in the description, or you can just search at PlanningWithKay, same way it's spelled here. So after labeling my dates and my days of the week in those daily sections, using some cute little gear, octopus, light bulb, daily header stickers, and that same turquoise watercolor, I'm now going to create a little decorative scene in the bottom right, and I absolutely love how this turned out with these pipe stickers that were on the Patreon only sheet from this collection. I cut up the pipes so that they're coming in and out from the sides of the page and from behind those daily boxes, and something about how this turned out is just so extra satisfying to me. I also included a lock and key floating over those, tying into that Bruce header at the top since he's holding a bunch of keys. And yeah, I just really love how all of the sticker decoration turned out here. Now in the bottom left, I'm going to finish this weekly off with a couple extra sections. One is going to be for all of my bills that are due this week, and then there's going to be another small area for any general weekly tasks that I have that aren't quite day specific. Once again, I'm busting out my stamps for the daily headers on that bill schedule, and I'm lettering my headers in with the green watercolor again, since I wanted to bring a little bit more of that color onto this spread. And with those bills and tasks sections done, that is it for this weekly spread, and I'm all done getting set up in my bullet journal for August. I can't say enough how much I'm in love with this theme and all of these spreads that I set up. Like I mentioned earlier, I've been waiting to use this theme ever since I originally designed this sticker collection at the start of the year, and I'm just so excited to finally have gotten the chance to use it and bring it to life, and that it all turned out so well. Some of the spreads in this setup are tried and true components that I do every single month and I know work for me, and others are some new additions that I'm really excited to try out for the first time and see how they work for me. But all of these spreads are getting me super jazzed for August to start, which is really good because otherwise I think I'd be probably freaking out a little bit more and focusing on just wanting time to slow down and stop moving so dang fast. If you liked any of these stickers that I used today and you want to try out a steampunk theme or any other of the sticker themes I have in my shop, all of the stickers are available for purchase on PlanningWithKay.com. I ship everywhere internationally, and I also offer instant digital download stickers, and every physical sticker order comes with a freebie sheet. If you do decide to place an order, thank you so much in advance for supporting my small business, and without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to the outro. And just like that, that is it for my August bullet journal setup. I hope you guys loved hanging out with me today and watching me set up all of these spreads in my brand new AmandaRachLee Notebook. I absolutely loved working in this notebook, by the way. It feels nearly identical to the Archer and Olive notebooks that I'm so used to using, so it was just an absolute joy to set up these spreads, and I am so happy with how they turned out. As usual, all of the stickers I used today are available in my sticker shop. I'll have links to everything down in the description below in case you're interested, and that's it. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like down below. Also hit that subscribe button if you want to know about all future uploads that I post here on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out the description for all of the links to my shop, Patreon, social medias, supplies I used. Everything is down there, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.